Hello and welcome to the Big Three podcast with Adarsh and Adam. In this podcast, me and Adam take you through all things cricket. In today's episode, we're going to discuss about the fifth test between India and Australia, which happened in Sydney. And starting off, I'd just like to say hats off to you for your predictions because from what I can see, all of your predictions of this series have come right. You said that Australia will win 3-1 and Yashasvi Jaiswal will be India's highest run scorer and Australia's will be Travis Head, and Australia's highest wicket taker will be, you said, Hazelwood, I think. And for India, you said Bumrah. So the only one which you've gotten wrong is Hazelwood, but he was injured. So
Oh, thanks very much.
yeah,
I'm going to predict the lottery numbers next.
yeah,
Cheers.
yeah. Yes. So, what have you made of the match? Because first of all, let's not get into the match. First of all, let's
Mm,
think of the wicket because,
yeah,
um, in my opinion, you can play on any pitch you want, and
yeah,
it in a test match, it's an international sport. You should not be complaining, but
no.
in if this same pitch with the same amount of venom was produced in India, you would have the groundsman decapitated. Anyways, I just think that you can have pitches which are a bit tilted towards either side, but I think this was a bit dangerous, which is not really ideal.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real risk as well. I mean, I don't know how much of it do you think was deliberate, how much of it was because I don't know weather leading up to the game or whatever. But if I was a side who was 2-1 up with one game to play, I'd produce a flat pitch and at least get a draw. So it was a bit risky because India have got a very good seam attack as well. So I don't know how much of it was deliberate and how much of it was because of weather or things beyond their control, because that made it into like a 50-50 game. So I don't know what the thinking was behind that, but I wouldn't have done it myself. But in the end, it worked out fine for Australia. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it worked out fine, and I don't think this was prepared to suit Australia. But
Mm,
it's just that if the same thing happened in some subcontinental
yeah.
country, then it would have been made a huge fuss out of. Anyways, onto the
Mm,
game itself. The first day, so India batted first, and honestly, it felt like a bold call. And
mm,
anyways, like also like I'm forgetting one thing. Rohit Sharma was dropped, and the
yeah.
day before that, there was this whole fuss in the entire media where everyone is talking about how he's going to be dropped, how there's been a fallout between all the players, Gambhir, and how there's a Mr. Fix-It in the dressing room who wants to get interim captaincy. So it was all a big load of mess, like Pakistan cricket.
Yeah.
Indian cricket became Pakistan cricket for one day, and it just felt a bit messed up. So what did you make of Rohit's exclusion?
That was really interesting. It was the right decision, but just the way
Yeah,
it happened was peculiar. I remember when Vaughan was captain, but he'd lost it and he couldn't bat well anymore. He just resigned
yeah,
with a test to go, and that was it. And that's kind of how it used to be years ago. Um, but now it seems like you can't even use the word dropped. You have
yeah,
to say rested or rotated.
yeah.
And like to stay dropped is like too offensive almost, which I think is a bit much. You can drop someone in sport. It's not like
I
you're
I
doing
got
anything terrible.
I got a lot of bad grades in my last grade, so I opted
Mm.
out of getting promoted to the next grade. I wasn't stopped by the school. Yeah, I'll use
No,
that
no,
in
you
front of
just
my
decided to
parents.
rotate
I'll
yourself.
use that in front of my parents. Yeah, I mean, there's no harm in a player being dropped, right? It's an
No,
international sport, and you're getting judged by your performances, which he's himself admitted that they weren't up to the mark. But these players have such egos, and you just have public relations teams. I mean, there's this tweet by Vidya Balan, which is out everywhere on Twitter, and everyone's hounding on it. I just don't think that paints a good picture for it. You just, if
yeah,
he want, if he was to be dropped, just let it happen the way it should
yeah.
be. And it just feels like I've heard reports that there is not everything is going well between Rohit and Gambhir, and yeah, it feels a lot for the Indian dressing room. And still, I think the way they've fought
Mm,
throughout the series, despite all the odds being
yeah.
somewhat behind them, is commendable.
Do you think was it Gambia's decision, or was it Rohit's decision, or was it someone else's decision?
Yeah, I
What
think
do you
this was
think?
Gambhir's decision,
Right.
along with Ajit Agarkar.
Yeah. Because I remember years ago, at 99, Steve Waugh dropped Shane Warne for a Test match in West Indies, and he won, so he was vindicated. But he said, "I've dropped him. He's not getting enough wickets. Lara knows how to play him, so I've dropped him. And there was never a case of it's rotated or I'm just taking him out the firing line. It was just he's dropped. And it's weird that nowadays you can't just use the word dropped. It's a bit funny.
Yeah, true. I think it's more to do. It's got a lot to do with the fact that individual players make up
Mm,
so
yeah.
big of a part of the cricket economy that you cannot
Yes.
you cannot just sideline them. It's more like Virat and Rohit. If you take them out of Indian cricket, I think they could start their own lobby outside of Indian cricket, and that's the thing, right? It paints a bad picture for the team because you ultimately want the cumulative team to be bigger than individual players. Superstar culture to not be as
Yeah.
big as it is in India. But anyways,
What
that's
about
what.
what about the fact that Rohit's 37? I mean, is that not an issue that
Yeah, yeah,
obviously everyone has to retire at some age, and if they're past it at 37, that's kind of normal, isn't it? It's not like a reflection on them. I don't
yeah.
know
He
why it's
just
like
said
a
that he's
scandal.
going. Yeah, he said he's not retiring, which I found a bit
Mm,
perplexing, honestly, because at the best he should have played till Sydney, and if that chance has been taken away from him and there's no WTC final,
yeah,
then he should have retired. Honestly, there's no reason to continue on at this moment. He does not look like he's up for the test level anymore.
not at all. I mean, he could have said before this test started, I'll retire unless we get to the WTC final,
Yeah,
and then that will be my last match. That would have been completely fair enough.
yeah.
But I don't know what is he going to? Maybe he'll retire after the CT.
Yeah,
Then
there are reports coming out that he might not even be picked for the Champions Trophy. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
is it a case now also? Like this is like a side issue that every big player has to have a going away series or match, um, like almost treating an international game like a testimonial. Um, like Jimmy Anderson in the past, if they didn't think he was good enough, he would have just been dropped. That's it. But they gave him a test series against the West Indies. Um, is it the case? Is that the same case with Sharma or even Kohli, where you couldn't just drop them and that's it? You would have to give them a test where everybody's there and they get a commemorative plaque or shield or something. And I don't know, someone comes on the pitch and hugs them or something. Does there have to be like a kind of a premeditated going away rather than just dropping someone and they never come back?
Yeah, I think with Asian culture, it is basically that you cannot just control them basically. You
Mm,
either drop them for good or they go away on their own. There's no middle ground in
mm,
between. Like I
that's very
heard a
true.
phrase which I think Ramiz Raja said, and he does not say a lot of wise words. So this was something very rare from his mouth. He said that in other countries like England, someone
Mm,
like Ben Stokes can take a break from cricket, come back, and
yeah,
he'll have a spot in the side. In
yeah.
Pakistan, once you go away from the side, you'll never come back, and I think that applies
Ah,
like very well. Even though I think that under Rahul Dravid, we
yeah,
had some sort of culture where injured players could come back in the team
yeah,
again, but that's not the same anymore with Gambhir. Anyways, I think we have spoken enough about the outside noise. I think
yeah,
we have to get into the game itself.
yeah.
Uh, so, what did you make of Scott Boland's bowling in the first innings and the second innings?
Mm,
Because I think that he's like unplayable on these pitches, right? Because he bowls the wobble ball on a six fourth stump,
mm,
six four fifth six
mm.
stump, and it just does a bit, and it just feels like you don't have any scoring options against him, do you?
It's amazing with him. The word "horses for courses" comes to mind. On certain Australian pitches, he's like the best bowler in the world.
Yeah,
You take him somewhere else. I mean, he went to England in 2023 and was smashed about by people like Zach Crawley. But when he's in Australia on certain pitches, he's unplayable, and he's getting great players out like Kohli. So it's he is suited to a specific conditions, specific grounds, and when and Australia are correct in picking him there, and he's just kind of horses for courses guy. And
yeah.
you lose someone like Hazelwood, who is a really great bowler, and they're able to bring him in like a testament to their strength in depth. And yeah, in those conditions, he's almost unplayable, isn't he?
Yeah. Right. So I've got three questions for you.
Mm.
Does Boland fit in your top three Australian fast bowlers? Second, how do you counter Boland as a batter? Third, what do you think of Virat Kohli's continuous falling against the outside off stump balls?
First one, I'd say no. I think Hazelwood, Cummings, and Stark are better.
In
On
Australia,
in Australia, I'll probably in Australia in certain conditions, you'd say Bowden might be in their top two after Cummings,
yeah,
and might be better than Stark and Hazelwood even.
Yeah.
Across the whole world, no. Um, what was the second question? The one about Kohli, it could be almost terminal in a sense for his cricket career. I think a lot of people will kind of find him out bowling those balls and getting him out in that way. Um, and the second one was about how I'd face him as a batsman. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's much you can do in those conditions against him when he's bowling well in his kind of home conditions and in those areas. It's very difficult. Um, if on a different pitch in a different country, you can kind of line him up a bit more. But I don't know how you would do it here.
I mean,
He
I
looks a
think
bit
Rishabh.
unplayable.
Yeah, I think Rishabh Pant showed the way because he was the only one who I have
Mm,
seen throughout the course of the series who's looked at some ease against Boland, because in this
mm,
innings particularly,
mm.
like, he counter-attacked Boland. That was the basic strategy of his.
Yeah,
He came out and started hitting him for sixes and fours, and he scored
yeah,
61 of 33 at a strike rate of 200. So I
yeah,
think that is the way to put off Boland. If you let him bowl at one spot again and again, then he's going to get you eventually.
definitely. Because who got Pant out in the end? It was Cummings, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. And with Virat, my opinion is that, like, I have written a Substack article on it,
Mm,
but my opinion on it is just that he either has to have the mental will to not be able to play the balls outside off stump.
mm,
It's really tricky because when you look at Bowl and Bowl, he comes in from an angle where it looks like
mm,
every ball is going to angle into you. So every
mm,
ball which you look, he comes in, and then it looks like it's going to hit you on the chest or it's going to hit
mm,
you on the bat, but it goes away, and then inevitably Virat is nicking it outside off stump. He just has to have
yeah,
better judgment, which I think he's losing by the day. I mean, if you look at his 2014 stance, he used to have
mm,
a parallel stance. Now he has an
yeah.
open stance to be able to see the ball earlier, but even then he's not being able to judge the ball properly. So either he has to be able to fix his discipline of not chasing balls outside the off stump, or just develop, or just hit more cut shots or off drives or pull
Mm,
shots, because I think they're bowling a good length, a shorter of a good length line to him outside the fifth
mm.
stump, and he's just nicking off trying to play with a straight bat face. Do you think that him playing with a open bat face or a really closed bat face would be better?
It could be. I mean, I just wonder about the age. If he's 36 and he's on a downward trajectory, will he ever
Yeah,
come back from that? That's my only thinking. He did get 100 in the first test,
yeah. I mean,
which is more than a lot of people. So he isn't like completely. It's not like completely terrible, and he does still get 50s frequently. It's
yeah.
just he's not as good as he was. So that doesn't mean he shouldn't stay in the side. It's just he wasn't as good as kind of vintage Kohli.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as if his fall is as terminal like Rohit
No.
Sharma, where he's getting out to everything. I just think the problem with him is outside the off stump, and it's not something which is completely out of his hands. It's just the fact that
Mm,
he's getting out to it again and again and again. Yeah, so that would be my advice towards him, even though he's not listening. And let's see how he
mm.
fares yeah, let's see
But
how he
you
fares
think
in.
he's definitely going to tour? Definitely going to tour England?
Yeah, that's what I was coming to.
Mm,
I personally would not take him to England because I
mm,
think he's done. And as much as a fan I am of Virat, I
mm,
think that you need to bring someone else in. He's averaged what, 31 over the last 5 years, and yes,
mm,
it's still better than his counterparts at his positions. But
mm,
India has better players, and if you play someone like Dhruv Jurel at his position, he's going to give you at worst the same amount of output which Virat is giving right now. So you'd rather gamble on him and bank on him to develop in the future than just aging star. That would be my way to look at it. And
mm,
now, also coming on to Shubman Gill, a lot of people have made out some things out of his performances. He's looked like he tried to attack in the second innings, and people are saying that he's wasting his opportunities. How do you
mm.
see his career and this innings
Uh,
particularly?
no, he wasn't great in this test, but I think he's a very good player, and he's someone that India should stick with.
Yeah, same.
I think he. I mean, when we talked about the next big four or Fab Four,
Yeah,
and he was just outside it. I think we said Jaswell, Brooke, Mendez, and
Stubbs.
or Ravindra maybe as well from New Zealand.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, he's in that group as well. Really, if it was a Fab 5 or 6. So no,
yeah.
I'd always stick with him if I were India, even if he made mistakes like he's done in this test and he's a bit overzealous. He's a quality player. and I'd stick with him. I saw him a few years ago playing for Glamorgan at Lords, so I think he's good, and you've got to stick with him, regardless if he makes the odd mistake here and there. He's a good player.
I think he's got a higher ceiling than Jaswal. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
he could do. They've both got high ceilings. I don't know which one's higher, but yeah, I think they've both got very high ceilings. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely possible.
Okay, so let's come on to the Australian second innings, shall we? Because there's
Mm,
not much to dissect from the first
mm,
innings. Also, yeah, one more thing. There was this period where Pant and Jadeja were batting for like
mm,
1.5 runs and over for 20 overs, and that
mm.
and that felt like the biggest dull fest I've seen in my life. And honestly, I there are rare situations where I'll call for baseball, but in that situation, if there was something which is going to get you out of trouble or get you towards 220, 230, it was that. And that's
Yeah,
what Prasid and Bumrah showed, honestly. In such
yeah,
conditions, when it's only a matter of luck of
yeah.
you surviving, there's no point just hanging around, in my
No,
opinion.
no, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bremen played a few good shots at the end of the first innings, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, and that I think gave India a better chance. I think Bumrah's doing everything. He's the eighth highest run scorer for India this series, and obviously the highest wicket
Yeah,
taker. So
yeah.
yeah, in Australia's first innings, let's look at some people. So yeah, going
Mm,
on to the incident on the second day
mm,
night, I think, or the first day night. When was this?
mm,
Anyways, whenever this was, so Constas Bumrah is coming into bowl.
mm,
Constas is at the non-striker's end.
mm,
Khawaja is gesturing to Bumrah to not come into bowl because there's
mm,
distraction in the side screen. And
mm,
Constas starts out of nowhere sledging Bumrah. And I think
mm,
that's a very big brain move to sledge the best bowler in the world, who's one
mm.
of the calmest persons, and then rile him up only
Mm.
to get your partner out and
Yeah,
make the player discover another level to his game.
yeah, that's true. I think, I think what was interesting about Consist, the way he plays, and also his kind of demeanour, he has kind of unsettled India,
Yeah,
or provoked them in a way that someone like McSweeney didn't. Um, and even though it's a funny one, he's got a lot of hype, a lot of good press, also some negative about him as well, and not really that many runs, really considering. But there's something about him that's caused a lot of controversy or a kind of consternation, and it's kind of got under India's skin. Um, like you say there, it wasn't very helpful to his partner. Although I think Kawaja just didn't. It wasn't like an amazing ball. He just kind of did. He play down the wrong line or something. He edged it,
yeah.
didn't he, to just the slip or the keeper? But I don't know what it wasn't like an amazing ball that was unplayable. I think he just kind of played the wrong shot or something.
Yeah, Khawaja is another one who has to go. Like he's just been
Yeah, yeah,
a burden throughout the series, and I think he's just waiting for the WTC final to go. On Constas, I think that
yeah.
I have got no problem with him
Mm,
punching players in the field and doing whatever he
no.
wants. But yeah, not punching players, but yeah, you get my point. But my thing is that I think Andrew McDonald came after the second day
Mm,
and said that he was feeling intimidated by the Indian players celebrating and up to his race. And I was like, you can give it and then you can't take it back. That just
yeah,
feels like you can't invent the line, right? The or
no, no.
you do not own where the line is. You cannot define
No.
it, and you can. It just felt a bit odd to me.
I think if you sled someone, you have to accept sledging back.
Yeah,
You can't complain then. It's a bit ridiculous.
yeah,
And Australians normally this is a bit unusual from Andrew McDonald. Usually Australians give it and take it. It's not an issue. They play very hard, and yeah, unless it's something really bad that's said, they kind of accept it. So I don't know why McDonald is being like that. Really,
yeah. I don't know either. And what did you make of Bo Webster's batting and his bowling? Because I think he's been really impressive. Australia have like four batting all rounders. They're
yeah.
just what can I say? They're just talked. Yeah,
I was impressed because I heard a lot about him, and then I was a bit surprised that he was 31.
yeah.
I didn't realise he was that old. But they gave a debut to him at that age, and it was vindicated. He was quite his innings was crucial in the first innings and in the second innings, but I think he probably would have won anyway. But the first innings it was crucial. He bowled decently, and he can catch as well. So yeah, he's a decent player. I think when Cameron Green comes back, they still probably have Cameron Green ahead of him. Do you?
Yeah, yeah. I think that when Cameron Green comes back, I think Jared Kimber was alluding to this. He said
Mm,
that he had a conversation with one of the Aussie selectors 2 years back, and they said
mm,
that they'll play Green at number 6 and Hardy at number 4, or the other way around, and that was the way
Right.
they were planning for their future. But with Webster coming in, and then you've got Will Sutherland as well, so I think there's a future where Cameron Green or one of Sutherland or Bo Webster opens the batting after
Mm.
Khawaja goes with
Yeah.
Constance, because I don't think McSweeney is really that up to the mark. And then you've
No.
got someone, you have Green batting at 4, and then you've got someone batting at 6, so they've got a really good batting lineup. It's just their bowling, which I think they've got really good pace bowling stocks
Mm.
behind, but I don't know if it's going to match up to the level of Cummins and obviously
Yeah.
Smith's replacement.
Because what's Stark's 35, Lyons 37, I think Boland's 35, 36, Cummings is about 31, 32. So
Yeah,
they're all quite old.
I think they're all going to push till the next Ashes and then go away.
Yeah.
Cummins
Yeah,
might
they
stay,
will.
but yeah,
Maybe after that they might all be finished.
yeah, Cummins might stay, but the rest will go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Also, what did you make of Prasidh Krishna and Prasidh Krishna's bowling this game? Because I think he's been a little erratic, and I thought it was a good decision to bring him in, because Akashdeep is more of a bankable bowler who's going to give you 20 overs a day
Mm.
and take 2-3 wickets, but Prasidh Krishna has the factor of just taking 6 wickets, 7 wickets a day. So what do you make of him?
I thought it was okay. Like you say, it was a bit more mercurial. Um, you can go for runs but get wickets as well. I
Yeah.
was impressed actually in the second innings when Bumrah couldn't bowl. The same two bowlers must have bowled about 10 overs each at the start,
Yeah.
without change. I know there was like a lunch break, but it was them for like 20 overs or 20 odd overs. So I was impressed by that. Reddy, I don't think did he bowl like a very few overs or if at all.
He picked two
Um,
wickets, Reddy, first innings.
yeah, in the first, I mean, like in the second innings when Bumrah couldn't bowl.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know if
Bumrah
he even
didn't bowl
came
for
on.
the first innings as well, for the last part of it.
Oh yeah, the last, but in the second innings he didn't bowl at all.
Yeah.
And it was just two bowlers bowling like for 10 overs each right at the start of that innings,
Yeah.
which was impressive. And then I think maybe Jadeja came on right at the end, or Washington, but the game was finished by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also now coming on to India's second innings, or
Mm.
should we come? Yeah, India's
Yeah.
second innings. India made 157 all out, and
Yeah.
it looked like they fought their way back into the game. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I just, yeah, with a 4-run lead, I just think that the main problem was that you didn't have one person sticking it out. Like,
Yeah.
they gifted 2 wickets away. There was the wicket of
Yeah.
Rahul, and then there was the wicket of Shubman Gill. I was going out just before I left. I was
Yeah.
seeing that wicket of Gill, and it just felt like, what was he trying to do at that moment?
Yeah.
And with Virat, yeah, the same thing again. With
Yeah.
Reddy, you just feel like, see, he's going to give you 100 one day, and he's a
Yeah.
really handy batter. But what are you doing playing Nitish Reddy and Washington Sundar? They're basically specialist number sevens and number
Mm.
eights. Do you
Yeah.
really want to have specialist number seven and number eights, according to you?
No, and I think it didn't. It wasn't a pitch that needed two spinners, really, was it?
Yeah,
that
definitely
that
not.
that wasn't required really. I think that on the evening the second evening, Smith dropped a chance at slip. I think he went for a ball that Khawaja would have caught and he dropped it. I think it might have been off Jadeja. And I thought, this could be like a turning point in the game, and maybe India will make them pay the following morning.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and they lost 4 wickets very quickly. Usually, you wouldn't want to lose those wickets. What did they lose? They lose like 4 for 20 or something. It wasn't even like 4 for 40, 4 for 50. It was like 4 for 20 or four for
Yeah.
fifteen or something. It was very quick, and he didn't. I didn't expect it to be finished that quickly.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. I think that Sundar and Reddy combined to form a 75% of a proper batter and
Yeah,
50% of a proper bowler. I'd
yeah,
rather play a proper batter and another proper bowler.
yeah. Same.
That would just make for more sense. And I just feel like there's been a lot of irrational selection in this series. And yeah,
Yeah,
just to cap off the India innings, there
mm,
was a bit of batting by Jadeja. I just don't know
yeah,
what he does, because he batted for 60 balls and scored
mm,
10 runs. I don't know what
yeah.
he achieved doing that. Okay. Yeah.
Do
And
you
Rishabh
think
Pant,
he thought runs were at a premium, and it was a difficult pitch, and whatever he could get was like almost like worth double? because 200 here would have been different to 200 on a flat pitch.
Yeah.
I think that maybe that was his thinking.
Yeah. Also, what did you make of Punt's innings? Because I know we talked about it earlier
Yeah,
as well, when referring to Scott Boland, but I think it was just amazing after how he was
yeah,
criticized in the last game by Sunil Gavaskar
yeah,
and all that. I think this is why
yeah,
you back players like Rishabh Pant. You just
yeah.
let them do what they want to. He's just so immensely talented that he's
Mm,
going to play these kinds of knocks. Just before I let you speak, I remember this innings he played in South Africa in 2022
mm,
or 2021. I don't remember the year, but he this pitch everyone was struggling to bat on. I think
mm,
Virat made 29 of 243 balls
mm,
or something like that. So it was nigh on unplayable, and he scored 101 of
mm,
120 balls or something like that. And he
yeah,
just looked like he was batting on a different pitch. And this was the same thing here, smacking Cummins out of the ground, two
yeah.
sixes in a row. That is special.
Definitely, and this is high quality bowlers on a bowling pitch
Yeah,
in a big match, in a big series, and he's smashing them out of the park. That's brilliant. Sometimes he falls over, doesn't he, when he hits his sixes? But that doesn't
yeah.
matter really. Yeah, no, that was a really classy innings. I suppose the only thing is when you're playing shots like that, you might eventually get caught, which happened. But he'd got a 60 odd on that pitch was like a kind of 90 or 100 on
120.
normal.
No, I'd rate that 120 equivalent on a
Yeah,
normal pitch.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Because if it's a score, it's a pitch where it's what's it, 180, 160, 160 for 4, 4, 5. That so a 60 on that pitch is very good, like you say, a 120 or whatever.
Yeah. Um, okay, so coming on to Australia's second innings, there's
Yeah,
not much to look into here, but I think the main issue was, yes,
yeah.
Bumrah was not there, and it shows that the
No.
Indian lineup is not even 50% of what it looks like with Bumrah and without it. But I felt like they took three wickets, but the
Mm,
extras which they gave away and the
yeah.
lack of control which they have, it just feels like it's not enough. And for me, the thing which turned the series and has made the series
Mm,
go in favor of Australia and not in favor of India has been the absence of Mohammad Shami. I can
yeah.
say that if Shami was here, I think the score would have been the other way around.
Mm, could have been. I mean, Shami's an excellent bowler. I wonder though, what is he? 34, 35. He's been injured for a while.
He's
He,
33.
33. Okay, 33. He's been injured on and off. Is it the end of Shami now, or can he come back like the same player he was?
Yeah, I don't know because he's had a recurring injury. He just feels like he's getting an injury after injury, and he
Mm,
was supposed to come back. Like I said in earlier episodes as well, he
mm,
was supposed to come back way earlier, but hasn't till now. But I still think that he has a bit to go inside of him, and if he
mm,
was in the series, then it would be completely different because you have Bumrah and Shami who are two bankable
mm,
bowlers. They're going to give you wickets day in and day out,
definitely.
like say Cummins and Hazelwood, and then you can have
Yeah,
someone like Stark who which is Siraj, who
yeah,
on their day will run through the opposition, and then you can have
yeah.
that luxury. But India don't have that luxury right now. They have to rely on Siraj, which is not a good thing.
I think the thing is, India have got a lot of good pace bowlers,
Yeah,
more than say 30 years ago, or whatever. But Bummer is so good. If he's not playing, it's still such a big difference, isn't it? Even though Siraj is good, um, he's just not. No one is really the same class as Bummer. Maybe like someone like Cummings or Hazelwood are at least in the same league, but it's very hard then to adjust when he's out, isn't it? Um, you know, he's just a class above. So if he's injured, you can't. It's not possible to make up for that, really, is it?
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
And on this, let's go back. Let's
yeah,
go back to the coaching tenure of Rahul Dravid, because
yeah,
people have criticized Gautam Gambhir a lot, and rightly so, for a lot of things. But if you look at Shastri's tenure as coach,
yeah,
he developed Siraj, Umesh
mm,
Yadav, Vishant Sharma. Even though they were already there, he brought them
yeah,
back to prominence. Jasprit Bumrah
yeah,
and a lot of other bowlers as well, pace bowlers. Under
yeah,
Dravid, he got ready-made bowlers, and he developed absolutely no one. And I think that was one of the biggest blunders of his coaching career, because Gambhir was dealt a heavy hand. He has
mm,
aging stars in the batting lineup, uh, ruined a weakened team, and
mm.
an Australia series to start off. So I think there was a lot of things which fell in the wrong direction for him, and India has not been the best recently at developing pace bowling talent.
How much were they knocked by the New Zealand series? Because I remember when they beat Bangladesh 2-0. Obviously, you'd expect them to beat Bangladesh, but there was a test where they only had like about 2 days to beat them because of the rain, and they did it. and it was looking like India were invincible. And then they lost 3-0 to New Zealand, and I wonder how much of that had an effect on their confidence, if at all. What was the thinking
Yeah,
in England?
yeah, definitely. There were reports that even after the first test win in Perth,
Mm,
they were not together. Like they didn't go for a team dinner together, and there are factions within the
mm,
team.
that's interesting. Did I wonder was the New Zealand series them taking their eye off the ball, or more of an indication of a problem that they actually had?
I think that it's a combination of both.
Okay.
There's problems within the dressing room.
Yeah.
You have, like, obviously you got Virat and Rohit who
Mm,
performed like spectacularly bad in that series, and
mm,
that is just end off. That was what happened,
mm,
and you created pitches which nullified the opposition's your
mm.
strengths and the opposition's weakness. Basically, any spinner could have gotten wickets on that, and Mitchell
Yeah.
Santner and everyone looked unplayable on that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was yeah, that's where I think they went wrong in New Zealand. And if they are smarter with their pitch construction and their team construction, then I think it's going to be a blip. But under Gambhir, I think he's secured a coaching tenure till 2027, and if he
Okay.
continues this way, then you've got West Indies next year on home conditions. So I think that will be fine. But
Yeah.
after that, you have got South Africa, and then you've got Australia again. So it's going to be hard.
Um, but before that, they've got England away, which is
Yeah,
normally difficult for India,
yeah. I
even
was
when
talking
India
about
were
home
dreadful. So
fixtures. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, sure. I wonder if Gambia was to lose in England, would his job be in jeopardy?
Yeah, I think it may come under question, but he could say that, yeah, well, we've not won a series in England for how
Mm,
many, like 17 years now. So he could say
yeah.
that. How do you expect me to change that? But yeah, I think if England produces flat wickets,
Mm,
then this Indian team has a very like very high chance compared to what it'd be with green wickets. I think with
mm,
green wickets, England rolls over India.
mm. No, true. Oh, how much? Because I remember when the World Test Championship final was in England in 2023, Australia were there, and it helped them in the Ashes. So they'd had like a proper test. Because nowadays no one has preparation before a test series, so they
Yeah.
always come into it a bit cold. But because they'd had the World Test Championship final, they were kind of warmed up. And I wonder, everyone thought India would be in this World Test Championship final. The fact they're not, does it give them less of a kind of less practice in terms of the England series? So they just come into it colder than they would have done if they played a World Test Championship final.
Yeah, I think there's some reasoning to it, but I think they're going to play some county games before the series.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, and also I've got two questions for you.
Yeah.
What do you make of the final? Obviously, that South Africa and Australia have are in the World Test Championship. And secondly, I also had one more question. Yeah, it is about the India England. No, not the India England series. Yeah, what have you made of the South Africa making it into the World Test Championship final?
Yeah, I mean, with that, you can only play by the rules that are set, and South Africa have done that. South Africa didn't invent those rules, but they've benefited from them. Um, there is a big discrepancy between if you take Australia, who've had to play 5 tests against India, 5 tests in England, another 3 test series, and South Africa, who've just played a number of 2 test kind of mini, which are effectively mini series against sides that are ranked below them. They haven't played England, who normally beat them. They haven't played Australia, who normally beat them. They played India, but only in a 2 test series at home, not in India. And everything else has been 2 at home against West Indies, 2 at home against Pakistan, two in Bangladesh, and so they've had an incredibly fortuitous kind of fixture list. And really, I don't think they're in the top 2 sides in Test cricket in the world, whatever South African fans say. But you can only play by the rules you're set. But it does kind of give credence to some of the critics of the World Test Championship who say that it's just it's like a mess. It's a mess of a tournament. It's not done properly, because in reality, India and Australia are the 2 best Test sides in the world, and really the final should be between them. But they've had to play, I don't know, 21 tests, and South Africa have played like 11, and they've all been against sides lower than them in the league. So you wouldn't get that in football, for instance. Everyone would have to
Yeah.
play the same amount of games equally. So I think that it's highlighted an issue with the World Test Championship, which is a good idea, but it's just poorly executed. What about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with you on the fact that the World Test Championship is flawed and very poorly executed.
Hmm.
But and also, a lot of South African fans were saying their board has no control over their
Hmm.
FTP. Well, newsflash, they do. They're the ones who
Yeah.
create their FTP. But again, like Adam has said here,
Hmm.
I think they only play the games which they're put in front of,
Yeah.
which are put in front of them, and they've played them. They've reached the final by the rules, and I think yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's okay, but there was a lot of discussion on Twitter about this, and I just feel that yeah, yes, you shouldn't really be going over the top with that because South Africa is not really the world's best side, is it?
Because I wonder if you ask people who are very fair, I don't know, Harsha Bogley, Mike Atherton, Manthorpe, Gerald Kimber, and said if South Africa played England, Australia, India in 5 Test series, would they win any of them? I think they'd say no.
Yeah,
Do
I think
you?
everyone would do
Yeah,
unless it were India in South African conditions,
yeah.
then they might have a chance. But other than that, I think all the other big three are winning against them.
And even New Zealand. I mean, they lost to New Zealand in this cycle. I don't think
Yeah,
they would have won in Christchurch or Auckland or whatever. It has to be at home to West Indies, at home to Pakistan, away to Bangladesh. I think that's probably their level. But we'll see what they do in the final.
yeah, yeah.
It's just, I wonder if any of those two sides will play a warm up because it's a bit harsh to go into a final with no kind of warm up. You just come to England and then a week later you've got a final. I wonder if they'll play, I don't know, even play Ireland in a test or something, arrange a test with Ireland or a game against a county side or something to kind of get themselves warmed up.
Yeah, I think Shukri Conrad, or South Africa's head coach, said that they are going to play some sort of warm up game. So I think
Oh,
they're
okay.
going to do something, and Australia too. Also, just to finish up this BGT topic, what have
Yeah,
you made of Cummins's leadership career? I think he's a defensive captain who's got a really good team, but
yeah,
in spite of that, he's had a tremendous silverware collection. And
yeah.
What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate summary of him. Actually, I think he appears a very friendly, a very kind of chilled out guy. Um, but he is a winner as well at the same time. So you get some people like Steve Waugh who seem kind of hard from the word go. He seems very friendly, but he does know how to win, and that is his priority. And if it means being a bit overcautious, a bit conservative, he'll do it. That last test was it Melbourne? He could have declared a bit earlier. He didn't, and he still won. And I think uh, in the end, he's vindicated by all the trophies he's won as captain. What did he do? He retained the Ashes, won the 50 over World Cup, won the BGT, but it was the first time they've won that in what 12 years or something. Um, uh, you can't really criticize his record, really, can you?
Yeah, but a lot of people have pointed out the fact that he's not won an away test series in India, England,
That's a very
Pakistan,
good point.
South
That's a very good
Africa,
point.
or
Yeah,
Sri Lanka
yeah,
or
that's a
Bangladesh.
very good point. That's a very good point. Although it's a funny one now, isn't it? Because I don't know, as a fan, if I was an Australian fan, I could take that if it meant I won the BGT, won the cricket
Yeah, yeah,
World Cup, won
definitely,
the cricket
definitely.
World Championship. So yeah, it's not like a flawless record, but I'd probably take that.
But do you think that if Smith had the same team, don't you think he'd get the same results? Because I think I do not wish to take anything away from
Hmm.
what Cummins has achieved, but I think that it's as much a product of the team he's got as his leadership.
Yeah, definitely. I think Smith had a very or has a very good cricket brain, and he was only stopped being captain because of that kind of sandpaper stuff. But yeah, he would have done exactly the same. I think even when Payne took over, sometimes I suspected Smith was giving him tips from slip or whatever, or from the field, from mid on or mid off or something. So I think he's yeah, he would have done just the same. But credit to him. He's the captain. He's won those games. Despite what we say, the buck stops with him. If they'd failed, it would have been his fault. So as they've won, he has to get the credit as well.
Yeah. So to sum it up, it's been a wonderful series. I think it's been the most attended series in
Yeah,
Australia ever, and they've broken their Boxing Day test numbers for TV attendances. They've got like massive numbers. The broadcasters are really happy with the money they've got. So yeah,
definitely,
I think cricket is definitely on in Australia, and it should remain that way. So yeah,
definitely.
on South Africa versus Pakistan and Afghanistan versus Zimbabwe, just to touch it
Yeah,
up at the end, they've prepared a really flat track in South Africa. I don't know
yeah,
what they're doing out there, and Pakistan just collapsed, and now they
yeah,
look like they're going to give them a second innings tricky
yeah.
chase or something like that. And in Afghanistan, Zimbabwe, it looks like Zimbabwe needs 73 more to win, which looks unlikely at this stage.
Yeah, yeah. I think with Pakistan, they're a bit unlucky in a sense that Ayub got in. I think he broke his ankle or he twisted his ankle like on the first few minutes of the first morning in the field, so he couldn't bat, and Babar Azam had to open. In the second innings, he actually made some runs. He got an 80 odd. I think he got 50 in the first innings as well, which was good.
Yeah.
But I think South Africa is still going to win, and even if it's a draw, South Africa still win the series. With Zimbabwe, it was good to see Raza come back for Zimbabwe and Rashid Khan come back for Afghanistan.
They
So
listen to us. Yeah.
they listened to us, yeah. So that was great. You would always suspect that someone of Rashid Khan's quality would be too much for a side like Zimbabwe. So that didn't surprise me. I think he's got 6 wickets in this second innings. So unless
10
there's a
wickets
really
overall.
massive
10
10
wickets all.
overall, well, I think you should get one of the last 2 wickets tomorrow. I think, but I
Yeah.
suppose you never know. There's still this. Zimbabwe can still do it, but you'd suspect Afghanistan would win, wouldn't you? Really?
Yeah, I would like it. It's a bit unfair on Zimbabwe because they've got Joy Lord Gumby to contend with, right? So after that, you
Yeah,
just don't know what you're going to do. Anyways,
him and Ben Corrin are yeah, interesting as a
yeah.
partnership.
Um, with South Africa, I just felt like they were preparing a pitch to draw the game because they've won the series, they've made the
Yeah,
WTC final, they just want to chill now.
yeah, it does seem that way. That's fair enough, actually.
Yeah. So yes, I think we've reviewed the last test between India and Australia. We're going to review the entire series and talk about the future of Test cricket with a very special guest, hopefully next
Yeah,
next week. Till then, we'll see you again. Bye.
yeah. See ya.